You are now watching Surveillance. Donate or subscribe for more sick taunts.
Alright, so welcome back, guys. Once again, thanks to all my patrons for supporting this video, making it possible. Today we have a short little video. We're going to look at the Trinket Death's Verdict, or Death's Choice, in Phase 3. And we're just going to take a look at the DPS across all the classes. That's pretty much all I have for you today, and then I'll sneak peek a couple later videos for you guys. So Death's Choice is a trinket. There is a heroic version, a non-heroic version, a horde and alliance version. They both just are the same trinket with two different names. It is from the Phase 3 boss Viola Lightbane, and it is best in slot for most physical DPS classes, like strength and agility classes. I think the only physical DPS class that might not want it is going to be Enhance. So it's a very high demand, hotly contested sort of item. Now, according to an older blue post, you're not actually going to be able to equip both the normal and the heroic version at the same time. They are going to share a unique equip category. So unfortunately, we won't be able to double up, and we will still be using Dark Moon Card Greatness for Phase 3. So because the trinket is so hotly contested and everybody wants it, I decided to make a chart comparing all the different classes and seeing what the sim thinks they are gaining from the trinket in their Phase 2 gear. I had a lot of help from other people on making this chart, mostly Frostbitten, and a couple other people like Wherefore and a few others. Basically, the middle column is the DPS gained, and the third column is the trinket being replaced. Now, because these Prio discussions usually revolve around getting a trinket in the first couple of weeks, we decided to go with Phase 2 gear, and we decided to do 180 seconds and 90 seconds. If you guys need a copy of this, it is in the Light Club Discord pinned up in the Retribution channel. As you can see, Retribution is going to lead the pack on the 180 seconds category, with Unholy being right there behind us. Survival and Frost taking third and fourth. And then after that, you have the other classes basically falling into the same bottom tier, all sort of being around the same 150 DPS, 125 DPS area. Now, one of the reasons why Red is getting one of the higher DPS gains here is because Comet's Trail just isn't that great for us. Haste is not one of our best stats. We just don't have that many great trinkets in Phase 2, so we are kind of starting from a lower point. And that's why Death's Verdict is going to give us a lot of DPS. Strength is already a really good stat for us, giving us 2.53 attack power per strength, plus spell power. So obviously it's up to every individual guild what they want to do with their loot distribution. But for anybody who wants to do a pure DPS priority, or who is prioritizing raid DPS output, you might want to have Retribution and Unholy in a very high priority for this trinket. Okay, so a lot of us don't have Comet's Trail, so I decided to make another chart. This one is just kind of for Retribution Paladins to see, like, if you don't have Comet's Trail, how much bigger of a DPS gain you're getting. Obviously, these other classes also might not have their best trinkets, but I didn't want to add multiple trinkets for every single class. I just wanted to do this for Retribution, just so you guys could see how things are going to shake out if you have Dark Matter or Wrathstone instead of Comet's Trail, which is a situation that a lot of us are in. Alright, so a couple other things to note about these charts. We and Unholy are probably the only two classes that are going to use this trinket for the rest of the game. And the reason for that is there is only one trinket that can be considered better than Death's Verdict, and that is Sharpened Twilight Scale from Halion in Phase 5. However, this trinket is only just barely better, and by barely I mean 20 to 25 DPS, which is nothing. The proc is going to give us about 180 more attack power than Death's Verdict, but the base stats are armor penetration, which is something we are not very keen on. The uptime on the proc effect should also be somewhat similar on both. Now, Deathbringer's Will is another armor penetration trinket that is probably better off on other classes. The proc can roll for 600 strength, 600 crit, or 600 haste. The cooldown is very long, so you can get lucky and get strength, or you can get very unlucky and get crit. So this is just an RNG trinket. Best case scenario, only very slightly better on shorter fights than Death's Verdict, but most of the time it's going to be 30 to 50 DPS worse than Death's Verdict. Keep in mind that when you sim this trinket, you're seeing the average of thousands of fights. If you use this trinket in game, you will have very unlucky fights and very lucky fights. I guess one other thing that I ought to mention here is that in Phase 3, when we have our Tier 9 2-piece bonus, the value of crit goes up a lot, and you're going to see Dark Matter and Comet's Trail kind of switch places on this chart. As soon as you activate that 2-piece bonus, Dark Matter is going to pass Comet's Trail by about 10 DPS. Alright, now with all that being said, this is the expected, like, kind of realistic trinket progression that Ret Paladins will probably use for the rest of the expansion. This is with the expectation that Tiny Abomination in a jar will be as good as we expect it to be. That is something that we can't really sim right now, so... Anyways, beginning with Phase 3, we have Death's Choice and Darkmoon Card Greatness. Now, obviously, if you don't get Death's Choice, you're going to be behind by almost 300 DPS. There really is no good alternative trinket in Phase 3. It's just Death's Choice and the normal version. You will also use Greatness all the way into Phase 4, when you will replace it with Tiny Abomination in a jar in ICC. Now in Phase 4, the only alternatives are Deathbringer's Will, which we talked about earlier, Whispered Fanged Skull, which is a decent margin worse than Death's Choice. It's kind of like a budget Death's Choice. Both of those are going to be a decent margin worse. Then in Phase 5, we have access to one extra trinket, the Sharpened Twilight Scale, which we also talked about earlier. It doesn't really change anything because we're not going to use it. I mean, we could use it for a small DPS gain of 20 to 25, but we probably won't. It's kind of a waste. So that leaves us with the same trinkets we had in Phase 4, with the same alternatives. Now you kind of see why I say that Death's Choice will be used for the rest of the game. It's not technically BIS, but it's most likely that you're going to use it and never unequip it. So this is how we come to the conclusion that Red is most likely going to use Death's Choice all game until the end of the game. Unholy is probably going to do the same thing. I think they are basically in the same situation as us, where Sharpened Twilight Scale is not meaningfully better. It might be technically better, but it's not meaningfully better, so they probably stick with Death's Choice. I'm not super fluent with the DK sim, but I did hop on there and mess around a little bit, and I can say that the trinkets are very similar. It seems like Sharpened Twilight Scale is like a very, very small gain, probably not worth. If you guys play DK, let me know in the comments about that, but I'm pretty sure you guys will also be using the trinket too. So going off of that, Ret and Unholy are probably the best two choices for these trinkets in the early weeks of Phase 3, considering they're going to have the greatest longevity and the greatest DPS gain, so ergo the greatest raid DPS throughput gain. So I know I'm going to get some criticism in the comments. I figured I would preempt that by answering some questions that I know a couple people are going to ask. So let's go ahead and just wrap that up real quick. So I talked to some other class reps to have them kind of criticize my numbers. And what do I mean by class reps? I just mean people that I know that are experts at their class, and people that sim their class or publish information or theory craft for their class, or are active in their class's community. I try to talk to people like that for every class. And Frostbitten also, who is a partner of mine, one of the Ret shills in the Light Club Discord. They are very familiar with a number of different sims, and so I had them help me as well. And we went through many revisions. Also, I had some help from Wherefore, who is a rogue guy. So Fury uses its best personal DPS spec. It doesn't go like Demo Shout or whatever. I didn't do arms. I'm sorry to any arms warriors out there, but I just didn't do it. Hunter's Trap Weave, Feral's Bear Weave, and Flower Weave. Enhanced Guide told me that they don't even want the trinket at all. It's not even best in slot for them, so I took them off of this chart. But when I did sim them, it looks like a very, very small gain, if any at all. Also for Rogue, we used both the WoWsims project and the Simonize sheet and averaged them, and we also took DPS numbers with perfect cooldown timings and imperfect cooldown timings, and we took them both into account. I hope that answers some of your questions, if you have any. And if you guys want, I can give you the settings that I use so you can replicate this. You know, Ret hasn't had the best time getting loot priority in the past, especially like based on a DPS merit. So it's nice to see one item where we really come out on top. Now, me personally, I love my guild and I feel like I've been treated very well, and I'm probably in the minority in that regard. I've probably gotten more loot than most Rets. So this really isn't me talking about my individual situation, but I know a lot of Rets out there struggle with like loot priorities and trying to get loot over like DKs and people who are doing way more damage. And, you know, so if you're going on a pure DPS Prio, then obviously Ret and Unholy are at the top. But, you know, even for guilds that aren't using, like, DPS as their only metric, they take more things into account. Getting the most DPS is still a big deal, and having the most longevity is a bigger deal. So it's nice to finally be on top for once. It's nice to be king of the hill for a day. So, you know, I hope you guys are able to get it. It's probably one of the higher priority items, I'd say, for us in Phase 3. Like, it's one of the items I would say you want to spend your DKP on. So good luck to all you guys out there. I'll give you a little sneak peek, though, of our next two videos. So I have, obviously, our Phase 3 Best in Slot video is going to be out very soon. We're working on the document. I just got started on it, and it should be done within a couple weeks. I would say probably 2 weeks I'll have the video and the document out. And then, also, I have another video coming out about will Ret be overpowered in ICC. So that video is going to take a look at the projections for how much damage Ret Paladin is going to do in ICC, and from there you guys can draw your own conclusions whether or not we're going to be overpowered or not, but you guys will see it's going to be a good video. So take care, everybody, and I hope you guys have a great day, and let's see some big numbers.
This show was brought to you by Light Club, where monkeys go to church.